Hi, and welcome to the Brohoyo podcast, where we talk about gotcha games in general and Hoyoverse games in specific. I'm your host, Steven, and allow me to introduce my co host, David.
Heyo. Yeah, so for our second episode, we wanted to come with another fun topic that we see getting thrown around a lot out there, and being the husbando waifu versus meta, is it something where you're a meta slave and you're following the best builds and you're min-maxing your artifacts, or are you going to play with a team that you like because of an aesthetic reason or a play style reason, but they may not be that SS tier that Reddit or whatever is talking about, right? So, in terms of how that applies to Genshin or how that applies to Star Rail, I am very much kind of a husbando waifu over meta type of individual. I just think that the content that's out there isn't too challenging. There's not a PvP push or incentive per se to really have to be a meta slave. So I tend to stick with that husbando and waifu side. And I do extend that into my non-Hoyoverse games as well, which I know we can kind of break those down as we get into it. But what about yourself, Steve? Where do you lie on this everlasting debate?
I'm probably going to pull in some jokes here, but I'm a soft meta player. It's not the be all end all. I will pull for husbando waifu reasons, but for the most part, I prefer to have a team that is fairly strong. I want to be able to play the content that I want to play. I guess it's more really play style based necessarily than pure raw numbers based. But
Hmm.
I want to make sure I have a lot of play styles available to me, and that typically means that I want to pull those strong power units when possible. That's sort of across the board. I tend to be more focused on gameplay over aesthetics. Again, not 100%. I do have some soft spots here and there for certain characters, certain units, depending on the game. But yeah, I would definitely say I'm more on the meta side of the husbando and waifu versus a meta argument.
Yeah, and I think there's a line that you said to me when we've discussed pulling characters in the past, particularly as it relates to Genshin. So, for instance, we just had Farina come out as a banner, but even back when like Nahida's banner came out, or when Raiden Shogun or anybody like that came out, right? When we were debating, well, are we going to pull for these characters? You said a line that stuck with me, and that is that Hoyoverse doesn't make a bad Archon,
No, I
right? So if there's going to be an Archon unit, odds are they're probably going to be pretty good. And that's why I pulled for Nahida, is because you got me thinking like that. Plus, I needed somebody for a Bloom team. But for the Farina Banner, for instance, I actually skipped on that because aesthetically she wasn't really for me, but I did debate it back and forth because of that line that you said, which ended up being correct because she's got some great multipliers from everything I'm seeing, and you're having a lot of fun, I think, incorporating her and building her.
yeah, she's a very fun unit. I mean, let's also be honest. Part of the reason why you skipped Farina is Navia was coming right after,
That's
so
true, and
there,
that
there
is
there's
a
some
huge waifu for
concerns.
me.
Yeah. So I'm sure on a reroll she'll be worth picking up, especially as we move forward and fewer units are required. I mean, I know that this kind of gets into a larger subject of power creep, which I don't want to get too deep into here, but at the moment, I think both of us have a fairly solid team in Genshin where we can start taking risks, pulling things that we wouldn't normally necessarily pull, or doing shenanigans that we normally wouldn't do, such as pulling on the weapon banner and ending up with two Mist Splitters and myself, a proud owner of a Verdict and a Skyward Blade, I
Yeah,
believe.
we both kind of got the opposite what the other guy
Yeah.
wanted. So, way to bring up that suppressed memory and a pleasant
Uh,
conversation about waifus. Oh,
well, you
um,
know, you do silly
so
things for love.
you do, because I think quite literally every character that I really have really adored in Genshin, I have their weapon, except for Navia, unfortunately, because of the dual mist splitter incident. But because I have Yelan's bow,
Mhm.
I have Iko's weapon as well, and those have kind of been my two that I've really enjoyed. Those are, I guess, if I had to like rate my waifus right? In terms of in Genshin specifically, not talking about Star Rail yet, but in terms of Genshin specifically, yeah, it's going to be Navia, it's going to be Yaimiko, and it's going to be Yelan are going to be my top three for me.
Yeah, I'm in similar boat. I have Yelan's signature weapon. I have Miko's signature weapon. I have Hu Tao's signature weapon. And because I pulled Navia's signature weapon, I had to pull for Navia because that it's
We
just
get, I get
yeah,
it, I get it. Let's move on. No.
yeah. I'm not proud of that either. Don't roll on the weapon banner.
Yeah, if
Brohoyo
you're
has
free
a
to play
yeah.
or a light spender, do not pull on the weapon banner. It is not advised.
Yeah, we don't listen to our own advice, and we've regretted it.
Do as we
So
say.
yeah, yeah.
Are they your waifus as well? Like those that you have, what we have a similar taste in that regards, or you have
I would
maybe
say
slightly different tastes?
in Yelan and Yaimiko, we have very similar tastes. I would say those both are characters that I really enjoy playing. I went hard for Yaimiko when she first came out, back before Dendro dropped, so she was considered a garbage character at the time. So that was definitely an anti-meta pool when I grabbed her, and I had to do it. She was a turret character, and she was a beautiful pink fox lady who was kind of had a naughty streak, and I don't know, it worked for me. I
Well,
just
you mentioned when she came out, right? Because for
mhm.
Yaimiko, unfortunately, I didn't get her until the rerun. But I do remember when she initially came out, there was kind of some issues with her kit in terms of things that were getting targeted by her lightning strikes. She had to be tweaked a little bit, and I think maybe there were some minor buffs when she originally came out. So when you say that she wasn't really the meta pick at that point in time, that is what I remember from when she initially came out as well.
So to clarify, when she first came out, her targeting on her turrets was random. So the way, for those of you listening who perhaps don't play Genshin and only play Honkai Star Rail or vice versa, I'm just going to do a quick, brief explanation of her kit. The way that Yaimiko works is you use her skill ability. You can use it 3 times in a row, and each time you use it, she will teleport a short distance and leave a small turret in her original location. So wherever she started the teleport, she will leave a turret at. And then those turrets will attack for 12 seconds, I think once every 3 seconds. So when you have 3 out, you get basically once a second attacks. And the problem was that when she first came out, her targeting was completely random, which would mean that she could end up striking multiple times on a shielded target that she couldn't hurt, or someone that was blocking and wouldn't be able to hurt. So MiHoYo, at the time, MiHoYo now, Hoyoverse, tweaked her kit so that it would only target the closest unit. The problem is that actually ended up breaking her, because what would end up happening is you would get a unit that was invulnerable to electricity or electro, or was shielded or would block and basically negate that damage. And as long as it was still the closest unit, it would completely negate Yaimiko's damage output. So they actually switched it back to being completely random within a range, and I think it deprioritizes anything that's non-hostile. So it won't attack fires or like random objects on the field. It'll
Yeah, like
prioritize.
destructible boxes and things
Yeah,
like that. It's like that was a complete waste.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I remember thinking of that clarification. I didn't remember all those specifics. I just remember it not being a good thing within the community. Was not happy with her in her terms of her kit. But I
Yeah,
do love her play style, and I absolutely love her aesthetic and her personality as well.
agreed. I think the larger issue that came out with Yaimiko is that because she was a pre-Dendro Electro character, that I really do feel was built with Dendro in mind, because they had to have been already planning Dendro's release when Yaimiko came out, like when she
Yeah,
was being
sure.
playtested and
That
so forth.
internal roadmap saw Dendro on the horizon.
Yeah, it was. We were already getting discussions and leaks about Sumeru when Yaimiko was coming out, so they knew it was coming, and she was kind of more built around that. So at the time when she first released, she had a lot of issues in that meta where you didn't have the advantages of aggravate. A lot of her damage potential was tied up in her burst, and it was a very expensive burst. It still is a very expensive burst
Mhm.
that requires a lot of energy that you have to generate, so it takes a while to get that built up and able to release it. And then when you do, she has a very clunky rotation where it's E. You use your skill 3 times, which takes about 3 seconds and doesn't feel smooth. That's one thing I would say about her, is that as much as I love the character, There's a number of times when I go to use her skill ability and the lag on the end of her teleport is just long enough to be frustrating. So you hit EEE, it's a little bit slow and clunky, and then you use her ult, and then you have to reapply those turrets because using her ult burns those turrets. So yeah, again, I love her. I love her dearly. She's a wonderful character. She's one of my most played characters. I guess if I'm being super honest, and much to my shame, especially when she first came out, I am technically a Kokomi main. And
Is that what the stats showed at your for the anniversary of like this character is your most played in domains or something like that?
yep, she has been my main every year since she came out, which is again not something I'm proud of, but it's the truth. Especially because I didn't pull for her. Because again, Kokomi was one of those characters that I got when I was building pity, the Brohoyo podcast does not approve of building pity. We do not encourage that behavior. Do as we say.
I remember this now. I remember
Yeah.
that night you messaged me
Yep.
and you're like, I did a bad thing.
Yep. I got a Kokomi. And when she was first coming out, she was another character that people were saying was just garbage because she didn't. Again, just for those of you who don't play Genshin and only play one of the other Hoyoverse games, Kokomi is a healer, but her big thing is that she trades the ability to deal crits for additional healing, which in conventional wisdom at the time meant that Kokomi was garbage. Absolute garbage. She can't do any damage because she can't crit. It doesn't matter that her hydro application is really good. It doesn't matter that she can solo heal through basically anything. That she has a high health because she scales off of health. So she's functionally unkillable, which has saved my butt a couple times. But all of those things aren't really considered advantages when she first came out. But things like Dendro and a deeper understanding of the game has made a lot of us Kokomi owners and Kokomi mains. We're able to hold our head up a little bit higher. There's more people who are more interested in getting a Kokomi.
They're coming over. They're seeing the light.
Yeah. She's considered a much stronger unit now than when she first released. But yeah, I did a bad thing very long ago, and I'm still kind of dealing with that, unfortunately.
So you got me thinking because you mentioned Kokomi being on the anniversary as your most played, and it got me thinking to my most played on my anniversary, which is GeoDaddy and Zhongli. Right? He is my most used character, and he's also probably one of the drippiest. He looks pretty sweet as well. I really do like his aesthetic, and when he pops in the story, I like his English voice actor a lot, which I know sometimes English voice acting can be questionable, but I really like Zhongli's voice actor. But for me, it's funny if you go through all my teams on the team loading screen, everybody has their hottest new album that they're dropping, their pose, right, in terms of that. So all my characters rotate, but if you go through all the teams, the only thing that remains the same is Zhongli is my number 3 key on pretty much every team. So he just doesn't move and everything around him changes, which is a humorous visual, but he is going to be, if we're going by who's used the most, it's him. And then I will give, while talking about GeoDaddy, we got to give GeoMommy some love, and that would be Ning Wong. For those that I lost there with GeoMommy is Ning Wong. I liked her play style, and when her costume came out during the event, it was her costume and Kaching's costume came out. I was like, wow, they're very elegant. I do like the blue appealed to me in the dress as well, and so I built a team around those two way back when, and working towards like a pure Geo team. And now with Navia coming out, like it may be coming back.
Maybe. Unfortunately, Ning Wong has kind of been done dirty over the years.
She has. I've seen her fall down the tier list, unfortunately, but
Yeah. But
I still have her built. She's ready to roll.
Yeah.
She's triple crowned and everything.
Well, I guess speaking of investment, I know for myself, my most invested in character in Genshin is Kaching. Not willingly. I've been Kaching so many times. I have a C6 version of her, so at this point, I kind of have to use her. I feel like
Every 50-50 you lose, it seems, was a Kaching.
yeah. I think I've still gotten a copy or two even after I C6'd her, which really hurts. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh.
Getting
But do you at least like her playstyle though, and throwing the dagger and blinking around?
So the thing is, I don't really use her like that. I use her as an ult bot because
Okay.
what she's become is she goes on my aggravate team. So her and Yaimiko are friends with Nahida, who is the Dendro Archon, and basically the team is built around them. And then of course Kokomi is thrown in for the healing to help support that team. So I guess if I like that would be my waifu team because that has the majority of my waifu-ish characters, not counting Nahida. She's a daughter fu. She doesn't count.
Yeah, it's a protect at all cost in that
Yeah,
regards. We can understand the difference in that regards.
yeah. So
You have a similar obsession with Klee in that regards of
I,
daughter Fu.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty of having daughter Fu for Klee. I had to get her. That's another example of when I had to pull for just the character, not
Hmm.
for the meta. Even though Klee is clunky, in my heart of hearts, I really want them to go back and fix her or do something to update her and just make her better. Like if they did what they did for Don Lee in Honkai Star Rail, where they gave her another glowed up version of Klee. It's like
Oh, Don Hung. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dong Hung. If they did a glowed up version of Klee that's like Don Hung style, where it's like Klee colon destroyer of worlds or whatever it is that they would do for her, Crimson Witch, what have you,
I
I would pull for her in a heartbeat.
If they run a rework Klee, I'm here for it. I don't love the gotchas that reuse characters, but just with a different skin or a different rarity. That's another topic for another day. So you meant so Klee being the character that you pulled purely for Daughter Fu and nothing to do with meta. For me in Genshin, and I want to get some of your takes from your Star Rail waifus
Mm-hmm.
as well and husbandos. But in Genshin, for me, the character that I pulled that had nothing to do with meta, and I just really loved their aesthetic, was Shenhe when she came out, and it kind of synergized with my team at the time because I had just gotten Ganyu on her rerun. Oh, and I have Ganyu's bow as well. Her signature bow as well. I forgot about that one. But yeah, so Shenhe, I liked her aesthetic in terms of and like the ice blue things and water stuff really appeal to me. So those characters already have like a one up on any other type of element. But I pulled for her even though she's not really meta. I mean, she kind of helped out the Ganyu in terms of shredding the cryo resist.
She's niche.
Um,
I wouldn't say she's not
yes.
meta. She's just very niche.
Yeah, she has a very small niche. That's a better way of putting it. Yes, but that would be a character that I invested in that I barely used, but I did love the way that she looked. So I want to shift gears over and show Star Rail some love. So while it doesn't have 2+ years of character banners and releases, we have had our fair share still to choose from in terms of husbandos and waifus. And I want to jump into that and who appeals to you in Star Rail.
So Jing Liu was the most recent character that I would say would be someone that I that's a bit of a lie. She's kind of the complete package. She was both meta and gorgeous character. To be honest, I think my waifu type character technically isn't released yet. It's Black Swan. They've released some marketing material, drip marketing for her,
Mhm.
and I'm simping hard for her, which unfortunately means that I need to go out and get a Kafka in this next banner.
Your wallet is in danger.
See, but this is why saving is important, friends. Only go as deep as you need to go.
You- So
Don't.
because you pulled for Rune May,
Yep.
you're gonna pull for for Kafka on her rerun, and
Yeah.
then whenever Black Swan comes, you got a lot of banners coming up, and
Yeah, but I've got a war chest of like 300 plus pools, so I'm not
so
super
you didn't go as
concerned.
dry as I did. That's true.
Yeah,
That's fair.
yeah. So I have some advantages there where I've got quite a bit of a war chest built up to help me reach that particular goal. But no, I think Black Swan when she comes out, I'm gonna be rolling hard in order to try and get her because just her art looks amazing, and that's all I'm gonna say for now.
Yeah.
Her art is
Yeah,
amazing.
what I've seen looks great. I'll be pulling for her as well. Plus, she's gonna fit into an agility team really well, I think. And that's essentially my account is like mostly nihility. Because for me, like I didn't pull on so many banners at the launch of Star Rail because we're introduced to Kafka very early in the story. And there's no way that character model is not going to be playable at some point in time. There's no way they Senora us twice, right?
Yeah.
And so I was saving for Kafka. Now on the route to Kafka, I think what Silver Wolf came first technically. And so I pulled for Silver Wolf was the first character I pulled for, but that was purely meta because she's going to be fantastic, which is held true. But and then I went all in for Kafka to get her, and that was really the first banner I went. So my account progress was really slow because I didn't pull anything at Strong. I didn't do anything on the sealed banners. I think the only 5-star I maybe had was I had Welt and I had Himiko,
Hmm.
and that was it. And so I'm only running Natasha as my healer at the time,
Yeah.
and then I think I was running Pela. It was a very ragtag team, which is what we have. And then once I got Fire Trailblazer, I subbed her in for somebody else. Anyway, Kafka was it, and I loved her. Her ultimate ability looks great,
Hmm.
and just the little boom she does at the end, and then all the spiderweb explosion stuff. It's great, and I love the idea of damage over time characters in any gacha, like the dots, and that's exactly what she leans into with the nihility path. And then after Kafka, I would say my next waifu character was, yes, similar to Jingliu. I had perfectly, totally normal reactions to seeing her that wouldn't be abnormal for gamers anywhere.
I think
Plus, I
Braxophone.
needed that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Braxophone did a good
yeah,
job of summing up a lot of people's
yeah,
feelings
but
for.
yeah. I enjoy it for good guides. Braxophone puts together some great videos, and he's got some great content as well. But he pretty much embodied in some short videos how I felt about Jingliu. And fortunately for my Jingliu pulls, they are quite literally the best pulls I've ever had in any Hoyoverse game ever. In that I'm on my 50-50, I'm 24 pulls in, and I get her 2 times in 110 pull. So I spent a total of, I think, what, 20 pulls total on her banner, and I got her twice.
Yeah, it was 20 or 30, something like that. It was
Oh, it
definitely on the
was.
low end. Um,
I know I yelled. I probably woke up some other people in the house, much to they're like, "Why are you yelling?" But I was very excited about that. But those are the best pulls I've ever had, and she is fully built now. And I'm with the Ho-Oh banner happening. That was a meta pull because I needed that for a second healer, or a second sustain for my MOC team. I'm finally ready to tackle MOC.
I know that we've spent a lot of time over this past session sort of talking about our waifus and husbandos and sort of our meta choices, but let's take a step back. We probably should have technically done this before we got into our specifics, but whatever. Conversations go the way they go. But what's your thought on meta and meta versus waifu in general? Not necessarily you personally, but if you were to talk to another player, another person who plays gacha, what would you say about it? What are your thoughts on it? What would you suggest that they go for?
Yeah, so in terms of what they go for, right, it really depends on what their goal is. Because so many times, I'll see something on a Reddit post or something like that, and they'll be talking about, I'm not enjoying this game. I'm thinking about quitting. Should I pull for this character or that character? And when I see those types of posts, I tend to err towards if you're not enjoying playing the game because you're playing characters that are meta, you're trying to follow that to a T essentially, but you don't enjoy the gameplay of those characters and it's gonna stop you from playing the game, then maybe you want to peel back and kind of lean more towards characters that you do enjoy, because that might reinvigorate your enjoyment of the game and help keep you in it longer. So that way you can maybe get a little further and enjoy the story a little bit more and see it through the end or whatever have you. But if somebody wants to be a meta slave and min max, I've done that in the past for like World of Warcraft. Like I understand that aspect of it. And the reason I bring that up is because with that, there was a competitive aspect in World of Warcraft because it's, well, we got to beat these raids, and you're raiding for X number of hours a night for X number of days a week, and you don't want to let your group down, right? So there
Mm-hmm.
was that aspect to it as well. Whereas here in gotchas, right, it's what's your goal in the gotcha? Is it to be highly competitive in the PvP formats? Is it to push PvE content? If there's competitive PvE content, like clear things the fastest or push like in a tower mode, get to the highest floor of the tower type thing, right? If that's your goal, then you're going to have to lean more meta than waifu, right? But if your goal is simply to enjoy the game, then you can lean waifus and husbandos a little bit more. And that's, for me, that's most of the games that I play. There's maybe a couple that I'll be a meta slave to, and I'll be looking for numerous tier lists. And then that's the other problem too with this too, is finding reliable tier lists, because there's anybody can make one, and it's like, well, but is it the right one?
Hmm.
But what about you? How do you feel in that debate, or when you see that? Because you talked to yourself about being a soft meta user, but how do you think of those folks that are diving and following it to a T versus the waifus and husbandos?
I feel like, for me personally, I think a lot of the argument for meta versus waifu comes from, to be blunt, the fact that for gacha games, in a lot of cases, you have very limited resources. Whether you're choosing to spend money or not, you have a limited amount of resources. So you want to make sure that you're using those resources optimally. There's a lot of pressure in gacha communities to be spending resources, to be shaping and crafting your account to be optimal. That you don't want to miss an opportunity. You don't. It's treated almost in some ways like finances when you talk about stocks and so forth. Oh, did you sell early? Are you buying this? Are you holding that? A lot of those same terms tend to get thrown around sometimes when you see them talk about gotcha communities talk about pulls and so forth. You're spending a resource. So if you're going to be spending a resource, you want to make sure that you're optimizing it for what you want out of the game. What are you going to get most enjoyment of for that resource? Because you're spending time, you might be spending money, etc., etc. So for me, I want to have strong teams that can play in lots of different styles. So that's what I tend to go towards. That's where I spend my resources. But I know that for a lot of people, they don't necessarily care about that, and that's perfectly fine. They want cute girls doing cute things. They want that particular U-boat from that particular battle that they really care about in World War II, so they have to get that boat girl or that plane girl or that, for Azure Lane is what I'm referencing there for those of you who didn't
Yeah,
catch that.
yeah, I figured
Yeah.
that was going to be what it was, right?
Yeah, just again for a more general audience who might not be aware of what boat girls are, there's a game Azure Lane. Boats are little girls. It's a whole
Your ship
thing.
foos, your ship
Yeah,
foos,
your
yeah.
ship foos. It's a whole thing. You might care about this particular legendary character if you're an FGO fan. Fate Grand Order. Right? Is that what it
Yes,
is?
sir. Yeah, fake grand order. Yep.
Yeah, it's Fate Stay Night, so it's the Fate series.
Yes.
Anyways, if you have something like that you care about, then that's where you should put your resources. Having said all of that, you also have to recognize that you do need to do a little bit of planning. You can't, if you are interested in that particular boat, that particular historical figure, that particular little girl who throws bombs in Genshin, you need to make choices then to go, okay, I really like this character. I want to build around this character. You then need to pick characters and units that are going to go well with it in order to make it so that you don't have a weird eclectic mishmash that in Genshin's case it wouldn't be unplayable, but you might want to look at optimizing that. And I know I kind of just weaved all over the place there, but I guess my thoughts on it are you need a blend. Go for what you enjoy, but make sure that you're also supporting yourself so you don't run into a situation where you end up kind of spiking your own tires in a pursuit of fun.
Yeah, and you mentioned having to plan with your resources, right? Whether we are free to play players, whether we are somebody who's buying a monthly pack or whatever it is, yeah, there's a finite amount of resources. And so you have to come to terms with, you're not going to hit every banner. You're not going to get every character from every banner on their first go. And I know that that's sometimes hard for people to deal with, because it's, you have the FOMO, right? The fear of
Mm-hmm.
missing out on that unit the first time it comes out. But there will be rerun banners, and especially since Hoyoverse has now moved to running typically two banners at the same time, they're going to come up more often. So as long as you are okay with that, and you've come to terms with it, then you can essentially do whatever you want to ultimately get the most bang for your buck, or the most synergy out of your team, so you can build around that character that you like, whether it be as you're laying with your ship girl. So that's, I would argue that's just a waifu collector at this point, with autoplay bullet hell. But anyway, I understand your point. I'm not going to lose the forest through the trees here, right? Or if you're playing whatever else it is, or if it's girls frontline, right? You can kind of play it to either side, right? To whatever you're ultimately wanting to do, but you have to have that in your head, that discipline to understand that if you do lean towards the waifu husbando play and there's a PvP aspect to it, I mean, you're if you're free to play, you're already lagging behind anyway. So this is maybe why it's easier for me to come to grips with that, and maybe this is why I have no problem embracing the waifu as lifu play style because I'm free to play in most games as it is. So I'm not going to be competing with the folks dropping hundreds, thousands of dollars in PvP stuff. So I'll just go with what I like, and most of the weekly rewards aren't so far off in terms of the PvP stuff versus the top tier things. So I guess that's what I would say to that.
No, and that's a good point. Is that part of it is keeping expectations reasonable on what you can, on what characters you can get, what you can get, and remembering that it's your account. That you're. It doesn't matter what other people are playing, even arguably in those PvP games, if you're going to be doing free to play. That at the end of the day, it's your account. You got to kind of treat it the same way that you would treat golf. You don't play in golf, you play against yourself. You're not really playing against the field because only you can beat you in golf. Yes, there are scoreboards and so forth. Tiger Woods is going to blow me out of the water if we competed and I put money down. But
Yes.
the point is that it's my game is the only thing that matters. I don't really interact with anyone else in that aspect that in the game of golf.
No,
In
I got it.
gotcha,
That's why they're analogies. They're similar. They're not
yeah,
exact or perfect. That's why they're analogies.
exactly. I'm struggling with it, but I'm trying to get there. The
I
the
got you. I
yeah,
think I think everybody will follow that train of thought, and that makes sense.
yeah. That at the end of the day, you have to craft your account for you. You can't be spending all your time comparing with other people, and that's where I think a lot of the husbando versus meta can come in. Is that there's an anxiety of like, oh, but I've missed spent, I've missed moved. I need to make sure that I haven't messed up in some way, or I want to maximize those resources, and so there's a lot of anxiety there that I think for most players it'd be healthier just to kind of let go of. If you like the way a character plays or you want a strong character, roll for that character. If you like the way that they look for whatever reason, or you like the way they play, roll for it. Just do so with decisiveness. Be decisive when you're going to do it. That don't throw 10 pulls here, 15 pulls here, whatever. I'll just throw them around. Like you need to have a game plan.
No, I want to wrap up the waifu husbando discussion, and then I ultimately want to move because we do have some stuff to talk about in terms of Genshin with a new four-star character, and then a couple of events. But so I'll just kind of wrap this conversation up by asking, we've talked a lot about our Hoyoverse waifus and husbandos. Are there any games outside of the Hoyoverse sphere that you want to shout out your waifu or husbando that don't come from the Star Rail or Genshin universes?
I don't want to, but I feel like I should just to give my bona fides. I'm gonna be honest. Red Hood from Nikkei. She
Okay.
she got
Yeah.
me she got me back in real hard, real
Okay.
hard. And I know that she's meta. I know that she is. But when I first pulled for her and managed to get those lucky pulls on her, she won my heart.
Okay, so that's yeah. So Nikkei got us the victory. Yeah, they had their anniversary event back in early December. Yeah, Red Hood was a highly anticipated character for those that play the game. She's a sniper unit, and yeah, it's probably one of the top burst three characters in the game. Well, you use her as a burst three or a burst one. She's a unique unit in that regards. But okay, so yeah, so Red Hood. Okay, I like that. I like that. For me, I also play a lot of Nikkei as well. So my Helm, I think Helm was my first waifu
Mm-hmm.
in Nikkei that like I really like. Again, blue water aesthetic. She's for those that play Nikkei, she's part of the squad that basically it's the Navy. So she was kind of one of my first ones, and then most recently. In the last event, the Christmas event they did, we had a new Ludmilla come out, who has a normal form, and then she's got this second unit they came out with her on, which is basically a winter hot springs proprietor type, but she's the dress looks elegant and she's a good unit as well. And then I do want to give a small shout out to a small idle game that is in the middle of their anniversary event, or that maybe it's just wrapping up. Eversoul. I've been playing that one for a little bit. They are very friendly, got a good selection of waifus and such, as well as giving out costumes and stuff in events. So nobody's. I mean, Hong Ling, I think in that one, she's a beast unit. It's probably one of my favorites, but that's a fun one. Idle, not a lot of time investment in it. If you want to check that out, they're having their anniversary event right now. So just want to give them a quick shout out too. I want to get into some more news we have with some new events here with Genshin and Star Rail. And I guess really with Genshin, it's not necessarily new events, but reruns of old events with a new skin slapped on it. But with these events, we have a new 4-star character that dropped. And I kind of want to get your thoughts if you've gotten a chance to play test her at all with Chevreuse and what your thoughts were on that, Steve.
So I have had a chance to get some time in with Chevreuse. I've done her trial, and I did actually end up getting a copy of her. I threw a couple pulls that direction, and so I do own Chevreuse as a unit. My overall thought is that she's not bad. She's a 4-star unit that is, she's solid. She'll do what she needs to do. I don't imagine that she will be a character that's going to show up on a lot of teams. She's very built around overload. So the pyro slash electro reaction in Genshin
Mm-hmm.
causes a lot of damage and knocks things back, which tends to be not good. So we'll see. She might be decent in a Yoimiya team. I kind of doubt that, but who knows? Really, what I wanted to focus in on her is her skill. So her E ability is you press and you hold it, and you get a reticle that pops up, and you get to basically fire her musket, which is neat. But I feel like we've gotten a, let's say, plethora of characters where that's become their abilities, their skills gimmick, is that they get to do like a targeting shot, and it just doesn't work for me. It's one of those that for Navia, I don't mind it too much because it's fairly quick. You can kind of snap fire it. For, I believe it's Mika that has it. He's the ice healing kid from the Knights of Favonius. Doesn't matter. Not important. That kid has a crossbow that he can fire, and now we've got Chevreuse who, fires her musket. So I feel like it's almost like they wanted to add a gun weapon to the game.
What's her main weapon? Is she a sword user, bow user,
She's a
catalyst?
polearm. She's a polearm
Pole arm.
user. So her auto attacks are going to be polearm. She looks very nice. She's very well designed from a both aesthetic and mechanical standpoint. It's just that the aim shot thing, I think, is what really is kind of getting to me, where again, I almost feel like there was somewhere in a Genshin design doc where they're like, well, we want to add guns or a new weapon of some assortment, but they couldn't quite figure it out, so they've just locked it into this new skill type where you have to do a short 3-second FPS, maybe less, 2-second FPS with questionable controls.
So it sounds like from your experience, she kind of suffers from something similar, like kind of what the gripe against Ganyu was, right? It's just like pressing R if you're playing on PC, and then aiming and shooting is just kind of it's a little mundane, it's a little repetitive and boring, is what it sounds like.
A little. It's mainly that it's a hard switch in gameplay where you go from an action RPG
Mm-hmm.
to trying to fire a bow and arrow in Dark Souls or Elden Ring or a FromSoft game,
Okay,
where
I
you're
gotcha.
the game is built much more around melee and short range maneuverability. But when you get a charge shot type character, or you get characters that have been coming out recently that have those sort of, I'm going to call it skill shot, just as a
Yeah,
MOBA
that's fair.
reference, these skill shot type abilities, it doesn't, it breaks up the flow a little bit, and it feels awkward, at least to me. I know that there are probably people out there who go, you're going to be overblowing it, it's not that bad, and they're probably right, but at least for me, it breaks things up. One of the things that I'm not as big of a fan of in Navia is that it was a neat gimmick, but the more I play her, the more it's like, okay, I feel obligated when I go into the her shotgun reticle firing mode.
You be careful with this Navia slander. This half of the Brohoyo podcast team is.
I understand. I'm walking on
You tread
eggshells.
carefully, sir.
I know, walking on
No,
eggshells
it's
here, but
no. I can understand that, and that's a fair critique. Yeah, if you're looking for an action RPG, and then like the switch to lining up a shot and having to aim it, and dude, God forbid you're trying to play on. This is why I play on PC. I couldn't do something like that on mobile. Some of the things that this game has you do, I just couldn't fathom doing repeatedly on mobile. So, but on PC, it's while easier, yeah, it's still different.
yeah, and again, there are kids out there who apparently can play Fortnite on tablets, so
Look,
it's probably a generational thing at this point. But yeah, it's a minor interface switch. I don't think she's bad. I don't think that she needs to be radically changed or anything like that. It's just she has
fire
a
element, correct? Or
yes,
pyro?
pyro. She's
Yeah.
pyro. For some reason, I thought she was electro, probably because Chlordine is electro.
Chlorinde?
Chlorinde. Chlorinde. I can't pronounce French names or words, so I'm going to be rapidly butchering all of these characters' names
You're
throughout
just
4P.
bad with names. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's okay, especially for characters that aren't officially like aren't released known.
yeah.
But we've met her in the story, so it's yeah. I gotcha.
Regardless, she's electro fencer girl is how I know her. She's got a pistol, so I'm really dreading that if they give her a pistol shot, but we will see. We will see.
We'll have to see in the coming months whenever they start giving us more information on her. Okay. Well, then so shifting from the new character, right? Because again, at the end of the day, she's a 4 star, and like you said, you're not pulling on a banner specifically for the 4 stars. It's the 5 stars you want to look for. So I want to move to the event. So the event is the Lost Riches event. It looks like it's a reskin of a similar event from earlier, and then you travel to a spot on the map. You go around to look for even a specific spot within that area, dig up some treasures, and then maybe you fight some things, and then we get another Sealy reward that's not the same color as the one we got last year.
Yep.
I think that's fair summary of it.
That is the event
Yep.
in its entirety.
And of course given to us in the classic one map every 48 hours type thing until the seventh day of the event when we ultimately are all going to do it anyway, right? Perhaps an oversimplification, but that's the joke for me at this point with Genshin events. But jumping into the event in Star Rail, we have the Pure Fiction event going on, which I know you have some thoughts on, and I want to get to those. So I'm going to give you the floor, and I might pipe up with a few questions, but take it away, Steve.
Will do. So the Pure Fiction going forward, it's less of an event, more of a alternate MOC, Memories of Chaos. So this is going to be a new end game mode that you can play in order to get Primal Jades, the premium currency for Honkai Star Rail. This is speculation on my part, but I believe that part of the reason why this was introduced was to help address an issue that a lot of people have been discussing about the fact that erudition characters are kind of garbage. That because they're focused on wave clearing and there's not a lot of wave clearing content, that they're basically a useless end game character type. So they released Pure Fiction, whose entire thing is about clearing waves. The way that it is played is you build 2 teams, just like you would MOC. You have to fight through a limited number of rounds and clear as many waves as possible. You have 4, technically I guess 5 rounds in order to clear as much as possible and get your score as high as possible. Every unit or every enemy that you defeat will add to your score, and the goal is to score 60,000 points total across 2 teams and 10 rounds. The round limit is a hard limit. It's not like MOC where, if you clear it, but it takes you 10 rounds or 20 rounds, you just get lesser rewards. Instead, in this one, if you fail to meet those point thresholds, there are lower thresholds that will give you rewards as well. So they're 30, 40, and 60, I believe, are the point thresholds that you have to meet in order to get full rewards. Having said all of that, I don't like it as a game mode. My main complaint about it is that I do not feel that it is functionally any different than MOC, where it is just another timed game mode about putting out as much damage as possible. It's just the difference is instead of it being 3 targets, it's 5 targets. So erudition characters are more valuable. Yes, I'm not going to argue that, but I don't think it's anything really radical or really interesting as far as in-game content goes. It's just another version of what MOC is, which is a DPS race.
So is it? So I guess it's just then for you, it sounds like it's just something else to do to earn primal jades, but it's not anything that you're going to be running over and over again like we would in the simulated universe.
Correct. It's basically something that you're going to run depending on how motivated you are to get as many primal jades as possible. You're probably going to run the first 2, maybe the third, in order to get what drippings of rewards you can get there. And you can go further if you want, but I personally didn't find it rewarding in the sense that the gameplay wasn't enjoyable. I did not find it interesting, but I'm also someone who doesn't find MOC super interesting. That at its base, it's very much so a pay to win sort of scenario where you're just, if you can pay to have the biggest number and have the big enough number, you'll get your 2 extra pools, 3 extra pools maybe over the course of a couple months. So it's definitely not something I would suggest anybody devote a lot of financial resources to, unless it's something that you really feel strongly about, I guess. The other thing I would say is that the other issue that it kind of has is it doesn't fix the problem that destruction has in the meta, where destruction characters are good in MOC because they can do single target, or they can do sort of light AoE because you target your big boss, and then you can, because of the way blasts work, where you target adjacent enemies, you can take out fodder that's with the boss. That still basically works in pure fiction. You're not taking out an entire 5 enemies in one hit, but most erudition characters can only do that on bursts anyways. That's not something that they're typically able to just do. So destruction characters are still really good in it. It doesn't fix the fact that destruction is the Swiss Army knife DPS class of Honkai Star Rail. If anything, it kind of just makes it worse because it makes hunt characters really bad in that mode, because hunt characters just don't have the ability to multi-target. Their entire thing is they kill one thing really, really good. So they want high health targets. Also, just to clarify, because I don't believe I mentioned this earlier, you do have elite units in waves. So there are high health units for you to target, but again, with a hunt character, you're just not going to get the DPS you need to clear waves, especially when you only have 5 rounds to do it in. Seely maybe could do it because of her ability to get multiple turns in, but I've run teams with Topaz, and to be blunt, Clara was the real DPS of those teams. Her entire job is just to get punched in the face and then clear out stuff. Topaz really doesn't do much on those teams other than apply DPS or damage bonuses to high priority targets for Clara to beat down on retaliation attacks. So I guess the long and the short of it is that I had low expectations for Pure Fiction, and I was still kind of underwhelmed because, again, at its base, you have 5 rounds to do as much damage as you can, and that's it. It doesn't fix a lot of the core problems that I see, which is, hey, you need to make survivability a thing. It's nice that we only need one survivability unit, be it protection or be it abundance, to keep your team up. But if you don't apply pressure on those parts of the gameplay, then there's no real need for those units. You have to apply multiple forms of pressure to players. Otherwise, all that's going to happen is they're going to continue to hyper prioritize DPS. And I just don't see this mode, at least as I have played it, I did not see it really apply any pressure that way. So it just continues to emphasize having front loaded damage in Honkai Star Rail. That if you don't have the ability to do lots of upfront burst damage, your units unfortunately suffer because none of the in game content rewards attrition style gameplay. But again, those are sort of larger complaints, I guess.
Well, and you mentioned, like I said, that this style of play doesn't appeal to you as much in terms of just MOC in general. So yeah, MOC adjacent wouldn't necessarily appeal to you as much, whereas something
Yeah.
maybe like a simulated universe would, because I know you enjoy the roguelike aspect of things like that.
Yeah.
Um, for me, I unfortunately I haven't been able to try out Pure Fiction. I was traveling this weekend, which is normally when I get to try out some of this new content and do some of these events. So I unfortunately missed out. But from what you're describing, I'm hoping that maybe Himiko will get to see some play for once, as I've had her built since the beginning because that's just who I got. Plus, I like the follow up mechanic with her, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like you said, she's not really been getting a lot of love, and Erudition characters as a whole aren't getting a lot of love. So maybe I can coordinate with some type of follow up team in there, and that'll be her time to shine. Perhaps I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you'll get good results from her just because you'll be able to get, as long as you have the right typing, you'll be able
Sure.
to get enough breaks that are, you'll be able to have some fun with her. And you are right. To be honest, my end game is stuff like Gears and Gold and the can't remember the other version of Simulated Universe that they released, but those are the
The
ones.
swarm thing, right?
Swarm, yeah, the Swarm. Those are the ones that I play. That's my end game content. If I'm being 100% honest, so I can't complain too badly that other people are getting their ball. They get to have their fun, but at least for me, was an overall meh, result that I wasn't super excited by it, unfortunately.
And that's fair, like, because not everything that they do is gonna hit or resonate with everybody. But I would agree with that sentiment of putting out more content that appeals to different types of people is a good thing, right? Because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe somebody who didn't like Simulated Universe but liked MOC was looking for some more stuff there. Now that's gonna keep them staying in the game and retain them, and maybe they feel incentivized to drop a couple bucks, right? And thus
Mm-hmm.
promote the game and keep it going. Because I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we want. Is we want to see things that people are enjoying to grow and continue with the game. So I'll,
Exactly.
like I said, I'll have to give it a try, and maybe I can give a quick summary next week about my time with it. But yeah, I just unfortunately couldn't get to it this past weekend with the travel. Yeah, so that's something I gotta look forward to. And then of course, we're like you mentioned, we're gearing up for in Star Rail. Saving up for our next characters here that we're wanting, and then I don't really have anything on my radar right now. I'm still having fun with Navia and getting her built up and in different events.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what's next for you? What's the next big target for you in Genshin? Because we both have the same next big target in Star Rail.
Well, small caveat: my next big target in Star Rail is Kafka because I have to get
Oh,
her first.
technically yes, yes,
But
that's right.
she's pretty much guaranteed at this point. As for Genshin, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have anyone on my short term horizon. It's about for me, it's gonna be about building my war chest up. I might go a little bit crazy and take a shot at Yoimiya, mainly because I actually don't hate her gameplay, but she unfortunately is always paired in the worst banners. The ongoing meme of that Hoyoverse hates Yoimiya because they're constantly pairing her up with better units that are must pulls like Shogun or Nahida or whoever. And I'm kind of now at a point where it's like I don't need another version of Shogun. Nahida's not on the banner, so she's safe. So I might throw some pulls Yoimiya's direction just to try and take a shot at getting her actually for once. Since unfortunately timing has made it so I've never been able to pick her up, but I'm not committed to that particular course of action at this point. I want to see what's on the horizon a little bit.
Well, and she's a fun character. We can go back, I'm sure there are a lot of Yoimiya, fans out there is just for her bubbly and positive personality,
Mm-hmm.
similar to like what Gwen is in Star Rail. They're just both bubbly, positive, energetic characters, and so that is definitely appealing and fun to have in the party just for some cute voice lines.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to do it for us this week. So we do want to thank y'all for joining us this week. Be sure to share with us your waifu or your husbandos from your gacha games, whether they be Hoyoverse related or not. Or maybe you have your own experiences with pure fiction. Maybe you have something that maybe differs from Steve in terms of your take from pure fiction. Be sure to share that with us. If you did like today's episode, be sure to like, follow, subscribe to the channel, and join us next week when we're going to be discussing the dynamic of whales versus free-to-play.
We made a choice, go fight against your fate.